Thank you for tuning into the Okinawa Karate Podcast. As always, I am Josh Simmers, coming to you from the birthplace of karate, Okinawa, Japan. Find myself with two of my good friends, Tuari Dawson Sensei, James Pankiewicz Sensei. Thank you, boys, for joining the podcast today.
Good
Thank
morning.
you.
It's good to be here.
So,
Yeah.
we've been talking about doing a recap, a little bit of a different topic, perhaps. We're not going to talk so much about karate. I guess we will a little bit, but talking about doing a recap of Tuari's visit for the entire month of November 2023. We were graced with his presence. He came here to share his culture, learn about the Okinawa culture. So we've been talking about doing this recap. Here we are today. I wanted to get you guys on the podcast and talk about some things in the past, in the present, and then hopefully some things that are going to be going on in the future. We'll talk about these designs behind me, the shirt that Tuari's wearing, and yeah, just kick it off from there. I wanted to go right in and start by talking about how the two of you first got together, first met up, what brought you together, and then a trip that you took last year. If you can describe, I guess, Tuari, I'll let you take it away, man.
Hey, thanks, bro. Thanks for having us on. It's just good to catch up with my brothers again. I suppose for me, I was aware of James. I mean, he's got quite a large presence, probably unintentionally on his part. And I guess the first kind of interaction that I kind of had with James was I was doing something around Sai, and he sent me a message and sort of said, "Hey, nice work on the Sai," something to that effect. And I was like, "Oh, well, that's James Pankiewicz." And then I guess a little bit later, when Bujin TV kicked off, I got this really lovely message saying, "Oh, would you consider being a contributor on Bujin TV?" And it was very complimentary about some of the stuff that I've been doing. And it was kind of from there. Then I guess you guys know me well enough to know that I will bother a person. I will stalk. I will troll. I'll get outside the house with a pair of binoculars if I have to until they acknowledge my presence. And this is kind of what I did with James. And it was actually, we became friends. We started, having regular sort of conversations, which was really cool, over and above Bujin TV. And it was actually at James's kind of urging, after I sort of shared with him a demonstration I did of Māori martial arts back in the 90s for one of my sensei, and also our mutual friend Shihan, Steve Arms up there in Canada, who really kind of said, "Hey, look, you should do something with this." And I'd never kind of really thought about it. And then it kind of sort of took off from there. And we ended up being in Canada. I'll probably give it to James. Is probably a little bit better on the narrative from this point on. But yeah, it was. And of course, we got to meet, Josh. So, I mean, all roads lead to the Okinawa Karate podcast, but aside from that, James, go, bro.
No, I mean, I think, we have to give huge credit to Steve Arms Sensei, as you say. He made it happen and gave us the opportunity to go over there, meet him. He gathered together a fantastic crowd of people. Obviously, Cesar Bukowski was also incredibly supportive for the whole visit and his whole organization, his family, really, his huge extended karate family in Northern Karate Schools. And Brad Jones Sensei, who hosted us in that beautiful, beautiful dojo as well. It was a fantastic, what was it? Was it a week or 2 weeks? The time flew by. We got to meet so many people, and the main event for us, obviously, was the weekend when we got to sort of teach side by side and combine elements of what we were training in Ryukyu martial arts, in Ryukyu karate, with what was for me and for, I think, everybody else there, a completely new thing, which was this insight into the Maori martial arts. And I knew it was going to be different, but I really hadn't appreciated how a different approach to training a martial art could make such a difference. And yet at the same time, I saw and continue to see so many parallels between these island arts, right? The islands of Okinawa and their martial arts, and the islands of, how am I going to say this right? Is it Aotearoa?
Aotearoa. Aotearoa.
Aotearoa, thank you.
Aotearoa, yeah,
Aotearoa,
right.
New Zealand,
Nice.
right? Yeah. So it's a learning process, as you can see. But I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by it because there are some really, really interesting parallels between the two cultures. I mean, one of the reasons I love living on Okinawa is because it's a chance to continue learning about this culture, a very different culture to the one I grew up in. And the martial arts is a vehicle for that. So the events, yeah, Canada was amazing, and we had such a wonderful spirit there of learning um, that we all said, "Hey, we got to do this again. We got to do this again." And obviously, naturally, the next place to do it will be back in New Zealand. So that's what I'm looking forward to hugely for later on this year. First 2 weeks in October. In fact, our events will be that mostly around that first week in October, right, Tuari? That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for. I mean, I think I'm really looking forward to that. I'm hoping that we can find a way to put Josh in your luggage in your carry on, so he can come down and bring his lovely wife and his lovely daughters and my nieces and my sister down as well. I think something kind of worth. I remember something that Hansi Bukowski actually said to me and you
Mm,
at Steve's, took us aside. And I remember, it had been quite amazing because both him, Kozvona, Sensei, and a lot of his senior units actually came and trained the whole seminar with us,
yeah,
which was amazing.
absolutely. Yeah,
People of that level and skill,
yeah.
and I got to visit so many of Hanchi Bukowski's dojo, all of which were just amazing and so
Mm,
receptive.
mm,
Um, and he took us aside and he said, "What are you going to do with this now?" I always remember he said this, "What are you going to do with this now?" And
mm,
I think Steve and yourself have been very kind of, I don't think I would have done it had you guys not been such a positive,
yeah.
applying a positive pressure, shall we say.
Mm,
And I think in talking with Josh and some of our other friends, uh, um, it just kind of became sort of something which I thought about. Well, I guess there must be something if these great martial artists are thinking that it is something, and then kind of you kind of put the idea in my head about we spoke about possibly coming to Okinawa. I was hoping to come and catch up with Josh and do some training and with yourself and
mm,
with our friends there, and said, why don't we do something here? And for me, honestly, um, Josh was so supportive of the idea. Yourself was so supportive, but I guess I couldn't imagine it. A place like Okinawa with so many incredible indigenous fighting arts, so many amazing masters and men and women who are just absolute legends. And not just within Okinawa, but worldwide. I mean, it just kind of blew my mind that they would be even entertain, be interested. So yeah, it was a challenge. It was a real challenge putting it together.
I remember you were quite nervous in the beginning, talking many times on text and on the phone or on video about what am I going to do? Are they going to receive me well? How are they going to look at me? Tattoos, all these different things going on, and honestly, I was a little bit unaware of some aspects of how they would receive it, but I also had a fair amount of confidence with, of course, talking to my wife and then some other locals, right? And thinking about the arts of what they like to share. And I think you probably knew this before, Tuari, when you came here to train karate, but I think this time it became very apparent. They love to share their art and they love to see art from other people.
mm,
How many times did you go somewhere and you were expected to sing, whether they knew you could sing well or not, right? I mean, I get asked this
Mm.
all the time. I can't carry a tune in a bucket, but you're kind of almost expected to share something from your culture. And everywhere you go, and the Okinawans love to share their culture. It's one of the most beautiful things about this island
yeah.
is how open they are and how willing they are to share uh, their beautiful island, right? So I'm glad that you got to see that, and I think your mind was pretty quickly put at ease, probably in only 1 or 2 days here, uh, where people weren't necessarily staring at this guy with tattoos. It was like, hey, here he is, but he's sharing his art, and I think right away they were put at ease with it.
I think the thing for me, and James had you both were sort of like people in Okinawa are a little bit different to mainland Japanese. And even when James and I went into the mainland, people didn't really pay any attention. In Okinawa, when we got into certain situations, I know that we were Arakaki Sensei was kind enough to allow me to come and have dinner he was having for some of his Australian students. And when we got into sort of social situations, people would always remark on especially they talk about how their grandparents had seen their older people with, especially the older women with hand tattoos very similar to mine. And then they would ask all sorts of questions and would lead into these really amazing kind of cultural exchanges. And it happened more than once. What was your take on that, James?
Yeah, it was, I find it was just such a heartwarming thing to see because, you have an intimidating presence. You're a big fella, and you have a potentially intimidating, appearance. Um, and yet what I saw was people were very curious. They were very curious, and what was really nice is that you, because you very kindly agreed to come in, and see and meet the kids at my kids' school. So when we went in and we visited the schools, my younger daughter and my sort of high school age daughter, the two different schools. And it was very similar to when, Josh, when you took us all to the Hawaiian circle as well, the Hawaiian group, It was just this real curiosity and excitement, really. Lots of great questions, and the kind of questions that kids ask, like why do you have that? What do you do with it? That kind of, like, just the kind of questions that adults are a bit embarrassed to ask. They want to, but they. But the whole interaction and the opportunity there to not just practice martial arts with people, but also to talk to them about the history and the culture, and to share your dulcet tones and your singing with them, which was moving on every single occasion. Even the unplanned yet very very fun karaoke session that we had, the family karaoke session.
Oh, hey, there's one thing the three of us have in common is when we were traveling up the island, it just turned into an impromptu karaoke session. I think
Yeah.
I think you guys are very good about that, but I think it was kind of, I think I almost forced you both into it.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot of forcing going on, but I think I'm
yeah,
always
I mean,
embarrassed about my terrible singing voice, so I
oh,
kind of let my guard down with you.
gosh, we're on the same team there, my friend. We're on the same team. Yeah? Yeah.
But
Um,
one of the highlights for me, I mean, I think sort of something which really sort of set the tone. I was able to sort of, even before I got to Okinawa, I was lucky enough to go to Taipei, and I spent the evening um, with our brother Michael Hagen Sensei and his lovely wife, who just sort of set the tone for the rest of the visit. And then getting into Okinawa, and within an hour meeting Dan Antonson Sensei, and I hadn't even set foot in the Asato. Josh literally picks me up. I'm the last person to get off the plane because they stopped me in customs and they made me take the weapons that's sitting behind Josh. They made me take them out and start swinging them. And then they told me about all the places they've been into New Zealand. You've been to Christchurch and all these places. And then I was one of the first people out of the plane. I was sitting right at the front. Um, but I literally there was no one left in the airport by the time we got out. And like to go from there to come to the Asato, which I've never been to prior to my visit. Sort of set just a really wonderful tone. And then of course for James, Steve, our translator, Australian brother, Josh, your lovely family, to go to the halal, which was kind of a really special. Well, I think it was like maybe 2 days in. I think it was one of the first things we did. Is that
Yeah, I
right?
think you were here no more than 3 days. You got here like on a Wednesday or Thursday. On Saturday, we were there, and it's funny. I want to really thank you so much to Steve Jarvis for literally stepping up to the microphone, because what we had planned to take you to the Palau and share your art, and I was asking my wife and my oldest daughter to please translate, and they were scared to death. They were like, "Well, for one, we can't understand Tuari's accent so well. Two, we don't really know the topic of the subject material, what he's going to talk about, and then to put it into Japanese." So we kind of forced Steve up there to the microphone, which I guess it's a good thing he came to the house and we fed him first, right? We kind of had to teach, had to
Is that the night we had
encourage
meat cake? Did we have meat cake?
meat
Was that
cake.
meat
Yes,
cake? Meat
the
cake.
meat cake. So meat loaf, which is one of the most
Meatloaf.
common
Meat
meals
cake.
growing up in northeastern part of the United States in Pennsylvania. And I think many people in Europe know what meatloaf is, but I guess it is like a cake. So Tuari got to have meat cake. We fed everybody before we went to the studio, but I wanted to touch on the different places you went to. And James, you had mentioned the first location was the hula studio. So let's talk about that a little bit, right? We went in there. My daughters used to dance at this hula studio, which people people know about Okinawa karate is this, the secrets of Okinawa karate, and some dojos won't let you record and everything. My daughters studied at this hula studio for 3 or 4 years, and we were not allowed to take videos. The only times we could take videos is when they were doing a public performance. Every once in a while, they would do something out in the courtyard area in front of the studio. That was it. We were never allowed to record because they are extremely secretive about their style of dance, how they teach it. So I was really excited to get you there, and we were able to record you. So I was happy that you got to go in and see that very traditional hula studio here in Okinawa, and they loved you. Uh, some of them, I don't know if you realized, Tori, but they were literally crying at the end when you were singing, and we all got together in a circle, right? And we were touching hands. So Kumu is in the middle. Kumu is like head sensei or kaicho, I guess you will, right, for a karate dojo. And everyone was touching her. And then as you were walking around singing, which I didn't understand it, and I don't know that they did either, but it was just so emotional. And later on, when we left, my wife had told me, she's like, some of those people were crying back there. It kind of touched them so much. What was your take on that? Was it what you expected?
Well, one thing probably was very similar to something James and I, were part of in Canada.
Yeah.
Was the opportunity for everyone to sort of connect. But I think the thing for me is I used to live in Hawaii, and I have so much respect for the Hawaiian culture, the olelo, the language. I was treated so beautifully whilst living there, that it was a nice opportunity to kind of reconnect with that for me. I think that, for me also too, I think with having Steve there, it was really funny. One of the funny things was I was going, right, this James who speaks Japanese and writes it. There's Mami, who's actually Okinawan. There's your daughters who all speak Japanese, and and then there's Steve, who's a professional translator. And all I could hear, I got up to the mic and said something. I think I said something in English, and all I could hear behind me was you guys going, "Oh, you talk, you talk, you talk, oh, you talk," and I was going, "Come on, guys, they let me twist it in the wind up here." They're looking at me like we don't understand what this goober is talking about. But I think for me, there's some things, and I found this in our interactions with a lot of the sensei that James was kind enough to take me to meet, that there were just some things that was kind of transcended words and just without getting into sort of the hippie stuff. But just, I think that Okinawan ideal of that once we meet each other chode.
Yeah.
Now, and it, which is very similar to a Māori concept, which is ko koe, which is I am you, and therefore you are me. I think that kind of permeated just every interaction. And I think also there was something really, for me, which kind of happened, I guess, on a spiritual level, as Steve and I were traveling up to the studio to meet up with everybody. Steve and I were talking, and he used a very specific Māori word, Māori term. a very specific. And I thought, wow, there's something supposed to be about this. And for me, it kind of, we talk about martial arts and those sorts of things and being warriors and all those kind of things. But I think, James, one thing that you've really worked hard on there, Sato, and that you really push as well, Josh, is the idea that there are more things that make us alike, irrespective of style, of preference, and all those sorts of things. And I think that was I'm in Okinawa at a Hawaiian hula halau, being Māori, being Samoan, with my friends, my family there, my ohana, my whānau that I created, that was part of there. And it was just a really nice start, and it just kind of set the tone. It was very touched to have you guys there and to be honored enough to be a part of it. And it was a lot of fun. Got a bit off the hook. I mean, but James is used to me sort of pulling him into sort of crazy situations. We had a few weird situations in Canada, but I'll shut up and let you talk, James. Sorry, bro.
Oh, I know. I was just so pleased to be a part of that. I mean, it was a first for me to visit that group. I didn't even really know about them. I'd seen a few dance performances in Okinawa, Hawaiian dance performances, and met a few groups at those. But I didn't know about this group, and I'd never been in to visit. Like you say, Josh, I understood afterwards that it was quite a privilege to be invited in. And it was just such a moving experience. I think that it was great having Steve translating, because he actually managed to capture he's a very literate man in both Japanese and English, despite being Australian. And no, but he was very good at adding that sort of poetic. You have a quite of a very poetic way of talking about your culture and presenting the stories and etc. And he captured that in Japanese, I felt, very well. And so people there really got sort of the feel of it, not just the sort of a cold translation. So I think it was really good that he was there to do that, because he did a much better job than I would have done. I was happy to be the fall guy, as usual, on that occasion. The UK, my privilege.
Somebody had to hit the hardwood floor, and I think Tuari knows that James is better practiced at that than everybody else in the dojo. At that,
I'm so good at being thrown into hard floors. It's my thing.
Well, I mean, you did work really hard to make me look good, which I'm very appreciative of. Hey, one thing I want to mention, if I can, just throw it in here. I also want to sort of do a quick thank you to you, James, and Josh, for your support when we did one of the things we did to kind of raise some funds for the trip was a Bunkai Jam, which was online, and it was so cool. There were so many wonderful people who listened to our podcasts and sort of aware of our content and online stuff who contributed their cold hard cash. Some of them didn't even attend. They were just, and I just really am lucky that we have this opportunity to really talk about it, because I'm so appreciative of so many people's generosity, even before I got on the island. So yeah. So
I enjoyed the Bunkai Jam that you guys did, both of them. I thought they were very well put together, and I hope that you do more of those. Maybe with an upcoming trip or something like that. Something can be planned. The first visit was at the hula studio, and then from there we had a couple different things lined up. James was kind enough to host you for 2 days at the Asato Dojo. I think that was probably the big event, right? You had gone to the school, I think 2 different trips. Was it 2 trips to a high school in Japan, in Okinawa, to speak? You did travel the mainland and did a video, and I'll share a link to the video. Very, very cool. But here on Okinawa, there was the 2-day seminar at the Asato Dojo, and then basically a half-day seminar at the Nix Family Dojo here in Okinawa City. And I think that if we look at you being able to share your art, the martial art side of it, those were the 2 big events. Let's talk about those. Your expectations going into it, Tuari, and your expectations, James. What did you think was going to happen? What did happen?
For me, I mean, the big thing was I actually didn't. To be totally honest, to be frank, I didn't think anyone would be interested. It really surprised me that people were interested, and then we had so many people. I mean, and top level martial artists turn up as well. I mean, what was really cool prior to that was to getting some training. I mean, when we went up to Josh took me up to the Kaikan. I'd never hadn't been to the Kaikan before, and then we went to the Budokan, in which we got our famous video in which Josh threw me so hard I almost knocked the place down. um it's a whole thing. You should link to that. It's literally he's about 60 yards away and he threw me so hard the floor vibrated. But I digress. And I think also getting to train a lot with you, James, experience sort of the daily goings on at your Sato, there was a really good opportunity to just sort of get a stronger sense of I guess the culture in the day to day. Josh, you and I going up to Hamahiga and being able to meet with your family and sort of discuss things, and being part of the Uchirishi program. It was really amazing to me because I suppose, from a certain perspective, it felt like an opportunity to give back to an art which has given me so much in my life. Hugely, I'm thankful to karate and kobudo. Have had a huge positive impact on my life and allowed me to do lots of cool things and meet lots of cool people, yourselves included, obviously. So I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know, because I'm quite an insecure person when it comes to that sort of stuff. And I'm kind of like this weird, kind of anxious tape deck that just continues, ask your parents' kids, that just would play the same thing over and over again. I was getting annoyed with myself, but I just couldn't help it. And so the morning that people were turning up in the weeks prior saying, "Oh, look, we're coming to this seminar," and it was just amazing. So yeah, I couldn't believe the talent that was there, to be totally honest. And the first one, there was such an amazing, and then for Ron Nix Sensei, Akemi Nix, and Brandon Nix, the Nix family, to allow us to use their dojo, their beautiful, one of their two beautiful dojo, was just mind blowing to me. And then getting people to train in the water and all that sort of stuff, I think that was because in Polynesia we don't have tatame or crash pads. We've got lots of water, so like it's a lot better hitting the water than it is, hitting the hard cold concrete floor, James? But yeah, tell me what you think, bro. I'm rambling.
Yeah, I mean, the highlights for me were definitely the outdoor training sessions. I mean, it was just great. It was so much fun. But I was intrigued by we had that opportunity, the first sort of touch at training weapons arts, Maori weapons arts in Canada. Being able to continue that here, that for me was fantastic. And like you say, we had a really, really good group of people come and attend. Lots of very skillful people to train with, people that were already very good at karate, kobudo. I think actually, I mean, not to compare the two, but our opportunity to go and train and run the second seminar at the next dojo was something which we added on because I just thought, before you go, we have to have another opportunity to do a good seminar with a lot of capable people, and that's exactly what it turned out to be. And I just think that was such a good technical seminar. We covered really good techniques. A lot of it was, and what I loved about it was most of it, in fact, all of it was pair work and was sort of semi kind of grappling, sparring work. And it really brought things alive. And now that practice, particularly the patu practice, is something that we've been continuing to do as a sparring exercise here in the dojo. And it's just really, really good. It's really good practice. I think it's really good for short weapon skills in general. But the way that you took us through the way to train that was some which I took away as something which will add to the way we train everything when it comes to weapons, and also affects our karate training too.
Yeah, I think one of the things which is really kind of cool was called, like Pat McGill Sensei and his lovely family had made time to come all the way to Okinawa to
Mm,
support and be a part of that seminar. And we dedicated the Nick Sensei seminar that felt appropriate because Nick Sensei had a very close relationship with Miguel Sensei's dad,
mm,
who lived on Okinawa for, my gosh, since the war,
yeah.
and so to sort of have people of Miguel Sensei's kind of level of, being local, growing up, being Okinawan, and have them there and have such a sense of it. Kimi Sensei, Brandon, and Ron Sensei, who just were absolute machines of not only martial arts but of positivity. It was a,
Wow.
a real special experience on both times, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's still interesting to me that people are so interested in it. It was a revelation to me. And I'm keen, sort of to do something here. Now, the thing which is really interesting, just on an aside, in the local community of Wainuamata, which I live here in Wellington, which you'll both get to come and
Mm,
hang out in, I put out a what do you call it, panui, or sort of just basically a Facebook message saying, was anyone interested in doing and learning Taihan Patu? Because it's a Maori community, predominantly a Maori and Pacific Island community.
mm.
And my thing is, and I got 300 DMs within 2 hours. So we're going to organize some training and stuff here, which is really amazing to me.
That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
I want to say I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I had seen you had showed these weapons to me online, and then I had researched a little bit, and you and I have talked. But one of the things that I really enjoyed was learning about how you teach, and then of course how you use the weapons, and then specifically where you were going through games. One of the things we didn't record because there was only the three of us was on the first day that you were teaching James and I. We were at the Asato Dojo, and we were playing games essentially, right? And you described this as how you would even teach children to find out what their skills are, and then maybe from that learn which weapon might fit that person better or different techniques. And we had a bench in front of us, and that was to simulate a canoe, right? Because you would be practicing this in the water. And then taking that into battle, so to speak, right? Um, and learning how the two partners would work together, one with a short weapon and then with a long weapon, and whether you're out in an open area, like on the beach setting that you described, or if you're in a wooded area, and who might be up front. That to me was really remarkable. And I've talked to a handful of other people that really enjoyed the way you taught that.
Mm,
Because one of the things we fall into with our martial arts is the how and the why, right? How do you do something, then why do you do it? And many times with karate, we're in a dojo on a hardwood floor and we're lined up doing kata, but maybe we don't really get into the how aspect of where does this apply,
mm,
or even the why. Why are we doing this in the kata? Right away, and as James mentioned it, we were doing partner drills. The only time we weren't really were the partner, I guess, is when we were doing the haka, right? But we were all lined up. Other than that, we were working with partners. It was hands on, and I loved to see these different people that came together that had maybe a Shotokan background without a lot of Kobudo, or maybe an Okinawa Kempo with Kobudo, Matsubashi Do with Kobudo. All these different people, Ulf Carlson Sensei and Leif there, Kishimoto D with some Kobudo background, right?
yep.
Seeing all these people try different things and how much everyone was able to take away from it was really fantastic. But honestly, you're being super humble, Tuari, and that's one of the reasons that we love you, right? But it was because of the way you taught the art. And I'm happy to hear that people are reaching out to you. I hope that you continue. Like you had said to me last week or 2 weeks ago, that this was a boost of confidence for you. Coming here and teaching it again was a boost of confidence because you realize people do want to learn about it. You've got something beautiful, and I'm happy to know that you're continuing to spread that. So I wanted to ask you if I can to describe what we have here, the shirt that you're wearing, and these are the shirts from the seminar that James hosted. Describe, if you can, what we're looking at here, the on the front of your shirt, and then this is just basically the back side of these.
Okay. Okay. So just in reference to that, so I also want to sort of really take my hat off and thank James for allowing me to be part of the Uchideshu program too. It was a really beautifully crafted cultural experience that took in my interests and kind of what I had hoped to get out of my experience. And so there was training, but there was also these incredible cultural experiences, and I really want to thank you for that, James. James actually put the shirts together. I came up with the designs. So on the front we have what's called a manaya. Manaya is like a manaya can be many things, but I chose this design because it's half fish, half bird, and the idea is that it's infinitely adaptable in any situations, which is a goal and a value. On the back we have Darako, and you can sort of see there the head of the taiaha, which is a long club that you can sort of see in Josh's. Yeah, Josh is picking it up. So that's the head, and the position that it's in with the head down means that it's a fighting position. So that's your on guard position. And I thought, well, hopefully that would resonate with my with the people that I met, and I think people seem to really like the shirt, so that was kind of cool. And James, thanks so much for organising all that, bro. That was really cool. I think it was a really cool way of doing it, actually. James says, "Look, why don't we get? I'll put together some stuff." And we went and saw we went and met the people who were kind enough to do the prints, and they were kind of like, what's this that James' son has brought with him? But they were really cool. They were really cool people. I think for me, if I can sort of say anything about the whole experience and without sort of getting into the nitty-gritties, I mean, I'm just meeting people I'd only ever read about. And I don't want to do too many name dropping, too many name drops, because it just sort of sounds very kind of self-ingratiating. But in essence, getting to spend an afternoon with Hachi Patrick McCarthy, getting to hear his perspective and knowing that he actually sees the stuff that I do and the sort of contributions I try to make on a tiny level. Meeting Yagi Sensei, Higa Sensei. I mean, Higa Sensei was just one of the coolest people I've ever met. We connected like that. And he actually, very famously asked me what my weight was. And when I told him, he says, "You weigh more than my horse," which is always good, which is always good. And I think for me, one of the things was a confirmation coming to Okinawa and in this way was an opportunity for me, I guess, to look at what I do. I didn't come fit. I didn't get there in any way, shape, or form. I had a bad knee while I was there. I was more overweight than I would have liked to have been. But I thought, well, come anyway. And everyone was so cool and I got accommodated. Training with Arakaki Sensei and getting to go to his beautiful home dojo, that was not lost on me. Like looking, my face was literally the same color as my shirt. Training with him, I think it was my and he was so kind and very generous and pitching the session at the Gaijin who didn't know his left foot from his right foot. And doing lots of training with James, training with people who came into the dojo with all Carlson Sensei. Oh my gosh, with Shinzato Sensei, having Pat Sensei there, all the wonderful people that we met. Going to a kata going to a class, doing a Goju-ryu class with one of the best kata practitioners in the world who teaches Goju-ryu with Andrea Sensei. That was an exercise in realizing how shit I was, to be totally honest. But it was brilliant. And I loved getting down on the beach and training with Antonson Sensei, me and James training, you and I training, Josh. It was just sort of a really amazing thing that has come back and given me a different feeling about what I want to do, because it gave me a view of where I want to go and what's still possible, not knowing how to get there, but the journey to it hopefully is more important than actually whether or not I get there. And that's what I want to pass on to my students. And that's why I want to come back to Okinawa. I want to come back to Okinawa and continue to be part of the Uchideshu program, to train in a way that makes sense. I mean, I think the way that I've chosen to walk my karate path is a little bit different, but it's the way that I do. And hopefully if I keep respect and openness is my two guiding principles. Things will develop in a natural and hopefully respectful manner. So that's what I try to do. That's why it's so important.
Yeah, I think that's really important. We had this conversation, a couple of times when you were here and subsequently, but I think, I said before that I see quite a lot of parallels between some of the ways that Okinawan karate developed over the years, was looked at over the years, and maybe where you are with teaching your indigenous martial arts. One of the things that a lot of the Okinawan sensei said, the older ones who were there in the years after the war when the island was coming back, and karate started to sort of have spread out from Okinawa through a lot through the U.S. military community that was then going back home after spending time on the island, was that, yeah, the old guys, quite a few of them said, they were really surprised that people were so interested in karate, because for them it was not something so mysterious and interesting and attractive. It had a sort of a different image, perhaps tainted by their local historical legacy. And for them, it was often a big surprise that so many foreigners were so interested in their art, right? And now it is what it is today. It's obviously it's grown and it's blossomed. And I really see some parallels with the way you talk about how the Maori martial arts has been largely taught within your community up until this point, and for some very, very good reasons, obviously. But it does feel like there must be a huge amount of potential interest within your community, as you've experienced, you've talked about there, but also outside as well, as people are, if they see an opportunity, just like we had a fantastic response here and in Canada. If people see an opportunity to experience it and learn it, I really think lots of people will, and I really hope that and I'm very pleased to be able to work with you, both of you, and our our broader group of friends and people and martial arts enthusiasts here to help to realize that. You're a very modest person, but I do think that you have a wonderful opportunity there to open up a gateway, open up a door, and allow people to discover. One of the things also that's really interesting to me is that sometimes I think the brightest lights shining on Okinawan karate are the ones from the foreigners, right? It's almost like a mirror that shines back brighter on the culture that it receives, and I suspect that I know that there will be lots of that happening too. People who are not from your culture but who are deeply interested in learning more about it, your martial arts culture and your culture in general. And I'm one of them. I think it's fascinating. So, for me, I mean, this for me, this has been a wonderful opportunity to get to know you, but also to get to know your culture through just a little bit through you too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose the thing that I want to say is that my hope is that you guys will come down and experience it for yourselves.
So let's talk about what you guys have planned for the rest of 2024. 2025 might be a little too far off. We don't know yet. But for 2024, you've already hinted that James Sensei is going to be traveling to the Southern Hemisphere. So let us know what's on the agenda, whatever you might know at this point.
So my plan is to visit some locations in Australia and take the opportunity to teach some seminars in Australia on my way down to New Zealand. So my journey is actually going to start some point around the 19th of September, flying into Brisbane and visiting the Sunshine Coast, then down to Sydney, Canberra and Melbourne, before then going on down to Auckland in New Zealand and Wellington subsequently. So I'm going to be in those Australian cities for about 2 to 3 days each. I'm organizing some seminars, and there will be at least one open seminar in each location. There's a couple of other private ones which are already being organized too. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be great fun. And then arriving in Auckland on the 1st of October is the plan. couple of days there, and then down to Wellington. We've been discussing some really great ideas that you've had about seminar locations and formats, training indoors, training outdoors. And I'm looking forward to you telling us a little bit more about what you've got planned.
I think there's some really lovely outdoor and indoor locations here that tie into the idea of, you know, for me, when I think of karate, and especially being there, in the month of November with you both, a lot of things that people, a lot of the Okinawan people and the sensei reflected on was the idea of being uminchu, or people of the ocean. So I think there's some really wonderful outdoor locations by the sea. I think there's some wonderful forested areas, and I'm hoping that we can spend some time at a marae, one of our longhouses as well. I'm hoping that what we can do is we can find to have, I guess, a large public event. And I think that people are really going to want to come and be a part of that, because some of the ideas you've talked about is about some of the ways in which you as a sensei and as a practitioner bridge between the many styles that you experience on Okinawa and the people that you train with. Also, as your unique take on Bojutsu. And I think that people are going to get a lot out of that. I think that also too in New Zealand, we're often, because it's so remote from the rest of the world, we don't often have, I guess, people of your caliber and experience coming to the country. So I think it's going to be an excellent opportunity. I'm hoping that we can create a really one-on-one situation with a smaller group and sort of have, I guess, a more intensive situation where people can actually talk to you about. I think that a lot of people in the West, I think we sort of really identify the fact that now there's perhaps people who haven't been to Okinawa that would love to come to Okinawa, or believe that the gate is closed, or that they're too old, or then perhaps they've trained in a style and they've moved off and done their own thing. And I think an opportunity to learn about it from you, to actually experience Okinawan karate and your unique take on it, would be hugely powerful. And also having a 6'4" bald tattooed Māori warrior to throw around at your disposal. I mean, I owe you, so I got to take some heavy falls.
Yeah. Well, I'm up for that, but I'm also, I'm going to be very respectful, because, your better half will be in the room, and honestly, I'm much more scared of her than I am of you. I'll tell you that.
Oh, same way. I mean, her and Josh. I mean, Josh and her are going to be buddies when they come down. I can see they're all going to be out on tractors.
No, her favorite kata is Naihanchi, by the way.
Yeah, she loves Naihanchi. That's one of the reasons that, and that's one thing that I took away. That's one thing I've really been practicing. Is practicing Naihanchi.
She's a classy woman. She's a classy.
Yes, very intelligent. Have absolutely no idea why.
Oh man, but one thing. I mean, for me, one of the things I learned about being at the Asato for a month was you never knew who was going to come through the door. I mean, some of the people that you hang out with, Josh, some of the people who we got to experience. I mean, there was Higa Sensei, of course, and there was Yagi Sensei, having the opportunity to go and share a meal at their dojo and meet some of his students, just purely on a social level, and for them to then take time to come and be present at our seminar was hugely, what you don't get better compliments than that. That was hugely powerful and hugely special. And I think for me, I think that if we can create an experience that is in the same vein of openness, and where people are led to the culture first, as opposed to coming in and sort of, karate is an important intangible, treasure of the Okinawan culture, but there's way more to the Okinawan culture than just karate. And so people getting an opportunity to experience something of a wider scope and a more culture, and the context of the culture, I think is really important. And so I think it'll be great. And I think people will, as they did in Okinawa, appreciate the opportunity to meet with someone who's there on the ground, trying to create these opportunities. And you've got some friends here in New Zealand too, and I'd hope some of the Aussies would hop over.
Yeah, I hope so.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Josh, you got to get down here, bro.
Oh, I will.
Have you come and teach.
Probably 2025. hopefully, or a
Mm.
little bit later. We'll see. But you'll be back here before then anyway.
I will.
Um,
I will. I'm
so
committed to poor Okinawa.
there's a trip for James coming down that way this year. We're already talking about you potentially coming back, maybe this year, but 2025. There's more things going on, so stay tuned. I want to thank you guys again for coming together and talking about Tuari's recap, basically, right? The whole month of November that he was here. And please, I hope everyone enjoyed looking at this, the videos and the pictures that we had to overlay. If you are interested in learning more and reaching out to anybody, of course, you know where I'm at here on the Okinawa Karate Podcast. James Sensei is available via the Asato Dojo and Bujin TV. Links there. Tuari is available via the Invisible Sensei. And also, I want to encourage you to check out another platform or another profile, I guess I should say, Life Indigenous on
Oh, thanks,
Instagram,
bro. Thanks,
where
buddy.
he is set up a specific profile to share his Maori culture. I think it's a fantastic Instagram channel he's got going and some podcasts coming out where he's going to share specifically about the Maori martial arts. Gentlemen, I'm going to close this out, if you don't mind, with one more thing that I want to encourage everyone to do. Please go watch an absolutely fantastic video by the best videographer, the best photographer, one of a kind man named Chris Wilson. Chris Wilson of Travel 67, who has partnered with James now for I don't know how many years doing the Karate Masters project, invited Tuari to his home in Motubu. And he took him out on the beach and did a nice video. And please go check that out, where you can even learn more about the Maori culture and you can hear
Mhm.
this man's amazing voice.
And you know what? There's many other wonderful karate master interviews that you may want to
Profile.
check out as well. Maybe instead of, I'm just saying, maybe instead of,
Well, watch Tuari's first, and then
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can go
Start
down
with
the line
Tuari's.
and watch
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah,
the
and
absolute
and
best
then and then
archives.
upgrade what some of the other stuff.
Yeah, it's the only way is up after that. So
Yeah, yeah. You go to the bottom and just sort of work your way up. And big thanks to Chris as well. You know, and you and James were twisting my arm. I was one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever had
I
to
know
do.
you didn't
But
want to do it.
I
Yeah, this
didn't
is the
want to
part of
do it.
you,
But I
like I
will
said,
say, James
we
says, look,
love
just
you.
trust the magic. And I don't know, but I was very honoured for Chris to sort of and James to include me in that. So yeah, it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah, highly recommended.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of 2024. I can't
Yeah,
wait till we're all together training again.
yeah.
And as always, thank you very much for tuning in to the Okinawa Karate Podcast, the only podcast coming to you from the only karate podcast coming to you from the birthplace of karate, Okinawa, Japan.